Test. Welcome to the 2025-2026 school year. I'm Brad Jadarski, the Oshkosh West Activities Coordinator, and I will be navigating you through this year's online Co-Curricular Handbook video presentation. Remember, competing in athletics is a privilege, not a right. You are a student athlete, and academics come first. The Oshkosh West Athletic Department has a vision statement to educate, inspire, and shape the next generation of leaders through commitment, competition, and service to the team, our school, and our community. We use this vision statement to help drive our decision making in regards to co-curricular programs. The Oshkosh West Athletic Department has some specific standards. There are 5 of them that we talk about in all of our programs. 1, integrity, do the right thing. 2, excellence, strive for greatness. 3, leadership, lead with a purpose. 4, pride, promote the Wildcat culture. And as a side note, take pride in the program that you participate in. Take pride in your school and pride in yourself. 5, inspire, raise the bar. Oshkosh West is extremely fortunate to have a partnership with Ascension Sports Medicine when it comes to our licensed athletic trainers. We have 2 athletic trainers that you will see during the course of your time here at West, Tyler Van Sistine and Dan Gary. Dan typically is here in the mornings during our weight room time with our strength conditioning class. Tyler will be here throughout the course of the school day and most evenings for event coverage. I personally want to thank both Dan and Tyler as they do an outstanding job keeping our student athletes safe. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to them either with the email address you see or the phone number provided on this slide. There's some specific athletic training information in the next few slides I want to share with you so that you're aware of it. Note the athletic training hours daily from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. And they work under the direction and in collaboration with physicians and other healthcare professionals. They evaluate and treat injuries and provide rehab to the injured. They provide immediate care in the event of a game injury, and as needed, they will provide physician referral if necessary and will communicate with the parents and coaching staff about this process. I want to share with you some information about concussions. A concussion is a brain injury, and all concussions are serious. Concussions can occur in any sport. They can be caused by a direct blow to the head or an injury to the body resulting in an indirect force to the head. Any suspected concussion should be referred to the licensed athletic trainers. There are many varied symptoms that can describe a concussion, and not all are visible. Examples include headaches, dizziness, confusion, nausea, light and sound sensitivity, difficulty concentrating, memory loss, feeling slowed down, and personality changes can all be indicators of a possible concussion. The trainers will perform a pre-season neurocognitive concussion test to get a baseline of the athlete's neurological functions. Should the athlete sustain a suspected concussion, the pre-evaluation will be utilized by a physician to help determine the proper course of treatment for return to play. Only contact sports are tested. Any non-contact sport athlete may be tested upon request of the trainers. Non-impact sports are swimming, cross country, tennis, track, and golf. Parents and the coaching staff will be contacted in the case of a suspected concussion. Athletes should be seen as soon as possible by the athletic trainer, then referred to a physician for further evaluation. All athletes will be kept out of practices and activities while presenting any symptoms. When the athlete is asymptomatic, the parents will need a physician's clearance for return to practice or play. Once cleared by the physician, the trainers will run the athlete through a gradual return to play protocol. Note, it is a gradual return to play. Coaches are instructed to use the following procedure with student athletes and concussions. When in doubt, they are required by law to sit the athlete out. Parents and athletes are required to turn in a signed concussion information sheet once per school year before they participate in any sport. This is done through your online Infinite Campus registration. Again, athletes, you should never try to hide the fact that you may have a concussion. Additional information on concussions can be found at the WI website listed below. And also, the WI provides concussion insurance for all member schools. Note, this insurance is secondary to a family's primary insurance. Information is available from the athletic trainer regarding this secondary insurance. Pre-existing medical conditions. It is very important that the trainers and coaching staff are notified by parents and athletes about any prior or current health conditions. Examples include diabetes, asthma, allergies, heart conditions, or any conditions that could impact the athlete's personal safety during play. If an athlete carries an inhaler or EpiPen, make sure the coaching staff and teammates are made aware of this and where to find it in case of an emergency. Also, any pre-existing medical conditions should be listed on the pink emergency forms that athletes will bring home to have parents fill out. Hydration is important no matter what season an athlete participates in. And please note, read these informational slides to find out how much water one should be consuming in order to stay properly hydrated. Regarding physicals, all athletes must have a valid physical on file with the school prior to starting practice in any sport. For the 25-26 school year, physicals on or after April 1 of 2024 are valid for this school year. Other important health information to be aware of is the WIA banned substance list, which is found later in one of the appendixes in the Co-Curricular Handbook, which I'll cover a little later in the slide. All physicals should be turned in to the school via emailing them to the coach, the athletic director, uploading them in Infinite Campus, or providing them in person to the athletic director. Physicals should not be turned into a coach. At this point in time, I'm going to direct you to be viewing the Co-Curricular Handbook that is found online and in the Infinite Campus registration process, basically a link to it. Note that we are a member of the WIAA, and the website on this slide explains where you can go to find all of the rules and regulations regarding the WIA. As a student athlete, you're responsible, and as a parent of a student athlete, for knowing all of the rules and regulations of the state association and the policies and requirements of the Oshkosh Area School District. My presentation will cover a few of the more important things in detail in the next number of slides. If you ever have a question about anything regarding the WIAA or an ASD policy, please feel free to reach out to myself or your coach. Starting on pages 5 to 6 of the Co-Curricular Handbook is information about what are the procedures for joining an athletic team. Again, a student must have a physical form and or an alternate year form on file with the school. Please note the alternate year form is a parent permission form in a school year when the physical is still valid for the student athlete, but it is more than a school year old. In Infinite Campus registration, parents will sign an agreement of parent and athlete and insurance waiver form. We will have you fill out a pink emergency card and also an emergency form through Infinite Campus. During your registration process through Infinite Campus, you will sign off on concussion and cardiac arrest information and acknowledgement, and you must register your child for each sport they participate in the Infinite Campus parent portal, meaning if they do 2 sports, you must sign them up for each of them, meaning you'll sign up twice, 3 sports, 3 times. Our academic requirements for student athletes are found on pages 8 to 10 of the Co-Curricular Handbook. Note, a student must be a full-time student in order to participate in athletics, where we are responsible for programming 100% of the student's day, and the student is eligible for like or similar awards, privileges, and services as all other students. When it comes to academic requirements, we are a zero failing mark school district, meaning a student can have no failing marks in the most recent grade reporting period. We have 4 grade reporting periods. The 7-week grade reporting period of first semester grades, the 7-week grade reporting period of second semester, and second semester grades. If a student is academically ineligible at any time, there are specific time frames a student will be out for. Note, in the fall sports, the WIAA has a specific set of requirements as far as how long a student athlete must miss, which is different than if they are in the winter or spring. If a student has one failing grade in the fall, the minimum ineligibility will be the lesser of 21 consecutive calendar days, beginning with the date of earliest allowed competition in a sport, or 1/3 of the maximum number of games/meets allowed in a sport. Also note, students with one failing grade in WA fall sports shall be ineligible to participate in 10% of the scheduled games meets in a sport, rounded up if 10% results in a fraction. The previously mentioned 21 days or 1/3 is if a student has more than one failing grade in the fall sport. Any 7-week grade check or first semester grade check that results in academic ineligibility is handled differently. If a student has one failing grade at those grade checks, they are not able to participate in performances or competitions for a minimum of 7 consecutive school days and nights. If their grade point average was above a 2.5 in the last grade reporting period, they will then become eligible on the 8th day. If not, they will need to have their grade checked in the class they were failing previously, and they are ineligible to compete until they are passing that class. If a student athlete is ineligible with more than one failing grade, they are out for 15 consecutive school days and nights. They would be eligible on the 16th school day, providing they are passing all of their classes that they were failing. And if they are still failing, they are ineligible until they are passing the class or classes that they were failing. Note new this year, an addition was put in on page 9 of the Co-Curricular Handbook. If a student drops a class where the student has a failing mark after an OASD 7-week grade check, and the district's deadline for dropping a class without keeping the failing mark on one's transcript has passed, the student will have to miss the next scheduled contest or date on the schedule if the season the student is currently participating in, when the class is dropped, still has competitions remaining. Again, the moral of the story is do the job in the classroom first and foremost so that you're able to be eligible to compete. I can't emphasize this enough to be proactive. If you are struggling as a student in a class, work with your teacher, keep your coach informed, as people are here to help you succeed. There are a few items on pages 10 to 12 I want to emphasize in regard to the Co-Curricular Handbook. On page 10, number 5, a student must be present at all classes on the day of practice or competition to be eligible to participate. Only permission from school administration or the activities coordinator will prevent us or permit a student to compete after missing classes. Okay? Students may not participate in any competition or performance or practice if they are out ill for any or all of the school day without permission from school administration or the activities coordinator. Meaning, if you're feeling ill in the morning and you contact the school ahead of time and say, I'm under the weather, and you can potentially get back to school for the second half of the day. If you get a hold of school administration or the AD ahead of time, We many times will grant the ability to participate later in the day if you are at school for at least a part of the day. Again, the key there is you must contact school and get permission ahead of time. Note number 7 regarding out of town travel. A student who travels to an out of town contest with the school or team must return with the team or activity. The only exception is if a student's parent is present, he or she may request the student returns with the parent. The request must be made in person by the parent to the coach advisor, and the parent will also have to sign off that they are taking their child. Each coach will have a copy of the district transportation form with them for all away events. It is important to note, however, that the coach advisor has the option whether or not to grant permission. The exception is if the student is asking to leave to attend another district sponsored activity, the student will be allowed to leave without consequence. Number 10 on page 11, a student regarding cut or no cut is expected to dedicate the time specified for practice by the coach or advisor of that activity. Regular attendance at practice is required. Some of the district's activities cut students and some do not cut. In no-cut activities, some students may not be allowed to participate in competitions until they meet minimum skills standards as determined by the coach or advisor necessary for safety reasons. Please note number 11 in regards to vacation. At the discretion of each coach or advisor, when a student is absent due to being on vacation with his or her family, upon returning to the team or activity, that student will not be allowed to participate in competitions or performances equal to 1/2 of the competitions or performances the student missed. If the student is absent due to being on vacation with someone other than his or her family, that student will not be allowed to participate in whatever number of competitions or performances were missed. One competition performance for each competition missed. Please note, if a student misses only practices, but not competitions due to being on vacation with either family or friends, this may impact playing time for the student upon his or her return. Students and parents are encouraged to speak with their advisors or coaches as soon as possible if they will miss any part of the season. Again, early communication is the key. Number 14 on page 12 of the handbook in regards to multiple participation. A student desiring to compete in more than one activity during the same season will be allowed to do so only if permission is granted by both coaches or advisors and the activities coordinator. It will be up to the student and coach advisors involved to work out a schedule for practices and competitions or performances. If a written agreement cannot be reached by everyone involved, the student will be allowed to compete in only one activity that season and will have to choose the activity in which he or she wants. If a written agreement exists, the expectation will be that the student abides by the agreement. Failure to do so can and or will result in the student being unable to participate in the activity or sport listed as secondary when a conflict exists. So again, open and honest communication. Additional things I just want to mention on pages 12 to 15 of the Co-Curricular Handbook. Number 15, in regards to in-district transportation, the district does not provide transportation for students to any practice sites and some home competition/performance sites. In these situations, it is the responsibility of the student, parent, and or leader guardians to provide their own transportation. Note number 16, our 3 strikes policy. The district will have a 3 strikes and you are off the team policy for removing a student from a team during the defined season. Removal will be the result of poor practice attendance, practice and or game disruptions, distracting behavior during the course of the season. Please note how we handle strike 1, strike 2, and strike 3 in number 16. Number 17 is the use of cameras or other recording devices in locker rooms. Please be aware that no images of nude or partially nude people or persons in the locker room may be captured, recorded, or transferred under any circumstance by any individual. On page 14 is information about club athletic programs. We understand students may want to participate in club athletic programs during the school year, during their high school sports season. As a result, we have the following policy to provide guidance. If you are a varsity athlete on a varsity high school team, the head coach will determine whether or not students will be allowed to practice or participate in a club athletic program during their varsity high school season. If a coach's position is no club athletic participation during the varsity high school season, it is based on the premise that a student's loyalty and allegiance should be to the high school team. For non-varsity athletes, if a student is on a JV1, JV2, or freshman high school team, students will be allowed to participate in club programs during those seasons with the following exceptions. One, student and parents need to inform the coach about their intentions as soon as possible. And two, students will not be allowed to miss a high school scheduled practice or competition for a club athletic practice or competition. Also, please note the WIAA has a non-school competition rule. It is the philosophy of the WIAA that student owes loyalty and allegiance to the school and team of which he or she is a member during the season of a given sport. Athletes may compete in not more than 2 non-school competitions with school approval during each regular sports season. Note the school approval needs to be done ahead of time. So again, please be aware of that information. Talk with your coach so that early and often, if you have that type of conflict that you want to work with, we can work it out. The next section regarding our co-curricular handbook I want to talk about is the code of conduct, which is really the nuts and bolts of the document. It's found on pages 15 to 17. A student must refrain from any conduct at any time that would reflect unfavorably on himself, herself, or the school. Conduct which could reflect unfavorably on a student or the school includes but is not limited to the following items listed as letters A through letter S, which are found on pages 15, 16, and 17. Okay. Please note, in all situations involving possible violations of the code of conduct, administrative discretion will determine whether or not there is an actual violation of the code. I do want to emphasize a few areas in particular. Letter A, use, possession, buying, or selling of controlled substances, street drugs / illegal drugs, and or performance-enhancing substances, drug paraphernalia, including sale, possession, or use. B, use, possession, or purchase of alcoholic beverages. C, use, possession, or purchase of tobacco in any form. Please be aware of what the use of tobacco means. Letter F, insubordination while involved in an activity. Excuse me, that's E. F, a criminal offense or a violation of a state statute or city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart. Letter I, knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. In situations where it is noticeably apparent to law enforcement officials that alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia are present, the district's determination will be that the student was knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. Okay. Letter N, behavior or conduct which reflects unfavorably on a student. Letter P, illegal or inappropriate use of the internet and or electronic devices, any posting or communication via social networking websites which disrupts either the educational or athletic environment is unacceptable. Q, physical violence or threatening violence against another individual, the school, another entity, or organization. Letter R, hosting a party. Letter S, supplying or bringing drugs and alcohol. Please note, all of those areas, letters A through S, are considered to be areas you can violate the district's co-curricular code of conduct. I also want to note that a code of conduct is in effect year-round and must be observed year-round by the student athlete. Our guidelines for penalties are found on pages 17 to 27. Okay, there is a wealth of information there. I feel it's important that you read that information and you fully understand what type of violation has what type of penalty associated with it. Okay, there are a few things I just want to talk about in general. Make sure you understand the guideline for penalties. A student may not join a sport to serve a suspension after the first scheduled contest in that sport has taken place. Okay. In the case of serving a suspension in a WIA sport and or activity a student participates in that they haven't done before, permission from both the activities coordinator and head coach or advisor of the new WIA sport or activity must be given. Okay, so you can't just go out for a new sport they haven't participated in to serve a code of conduct violation if you haven't done that sport before. And note, we also have something called simultaneous consequences, where students may participate in simultaneous activities. However, if a student incurs a violation, he or she shall be penalized according to the code for each activity if any or all activity seasons are taking place simultaneously. Note all category A, B, and E activities as defined earlier in the Co-Curricular Handbook will have defined beginning and end dates. We also have something called a self-referral and an honesty referral. Okay, those are found on page 21. A self-referral is if a student athlete presents himself or herself to the activities coordinator or is as a person who has violated the code of conduct in the areas numbered 1 to 5 below, that student will have his or her penalty reduced. For this to occur, the student must self-admit no later than the first school day after the violation has occurred, and the information cannot already have been shared with school administration from another source. Administration may grant an extension to the one-day school provision due to extenuating circumstances. Students and or their parents are strongly encouraged to self-report violations of the code of conduct during the summer months to the activities coordinator as soon as possible. A honesty referral is if a student, upon a first questioning by the activities coordinator or other high school administrator, provides truthful information about committing a code of conduct violation in the areas numbered 1 to 5 below, that student will have his or her penalty reduced. For this to occur, the school must be conducting an investigation and not have had a law enforcement report and or published written account and or by any factual credible means confirming the student had committed a code of conduct violation. Again, when it comes to being honest, whether self-referring or upon being questioning without prior information about your involvement, we do reward that honesty. Okay? Note, when it comes to violations of our co-curricular code of conduct, okay, the areas that are talked about initially, as I mentioned, number 1 to 5 are the use, possession, buying, or selling of controlled substances, street drugs, illegal drugs, and or performance-enhancing substances, drug paraphernalia, including sale, possession, or use, possession, or tobacco in any form, use, possession, or purchase of alcoholic beverages, knowingly in the presence of illegal drugs and or drug paraphernalia, meaning in situations where it is apparent to law enforcement that alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia are present, the district's determination will be that the student was knowingly in the presence of the alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. 5, acts of vandalism. 6, hosting a party. 7, supplying or bringing alcohol or drugs. 8, a school AOADA violation. And 9, use of tobacco, nicotine, and related products by students. Okay, those are the penalties that are initially found on pages, or the areas that can be penalized on pages 17, 18, and 19. There is a difference in those areas as far as the length of consequence, depending on if you get caught, if you turn yourself in with the self-referral, or if you turn yourself in with the honesty referral. Please note to be sure to familiarize yourself with the penalties for first violations, okay, second violations, third violations, and fourth violations. As the violations go up, the penalties go up. And again, honesty is rewarded if it meets our definition of self-referral or honesty referral. Also, please note, even if you're not drinking and are knowingly in the presence of alcohol, tobacco, or other illegal drugs, it is a violation of our co-curricular handbook. I also want you to be aware of information from the WIA, okay, regarding areas, first on page 26, areas that are in our cumulative section, which are numbered 10 through 15, meaning these offenses are cumulative within themselves only and apply to all activity categories referenced in the handbook. Meaning, if you have a first violation and maybe alcohol, but then have a violation in one of the areas in 10 through 15, it doesn't become a second level consequence automatically. Okay? So those areas that I want to mention are 10 through 15, criminal offense, or violation of a city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, physical violence or threatening violence against another individual, the school, another entity or organization, acts of harassment, including hazing, violation of student rules as described in the school planner, recruitment of student athletes, and illegal or inappropriate use of the internet and or electronic devices, any posting or communication via social networking websites which disrupts either the educational or athletic environment is unacceptable. Okay? No, those are areas which are cumulative within themselves only, meaning the penalties can vary. So, in particular, I want to make note of the WIA and OASD felony language, which is under 10. If a student is charged with a felony, the student could lose the right to participate in athletics, activities, and or clubs for the remainder of their high school career in the district. Okay, so please note, be aware of that. The WA's rule regarding any student charged and or convicted of a felony shall, upon the filing of felony charges, become ineligible for all further participation until the student has paid his or her debt to society and the courts, and the court consider the sentence served, meaning in probation or community service. Okay. I also want to mention something under number 12, acts of harassment, including hazing. Please refer to the following district policies: 2260, non-discrimination and access to equal educational opportunity; 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex and education programs or activities; 5516, student hazing; 5517, student anti-harassment; and 5517.01, bullying. Those are all specific board policies that fall under that category. Starting on pages 27 and 28 is information regarding behavioral offenses, which are violations of the district's co-curricular handbook, but typically aren't considered as serious as the ones previously mentioned. Those are items numbered 1 through 8 on pages 27 and 28. There are a couple I want to mention in particular. First of all, number 4, acts of truancy. A student participating in activities might not be permitted to participate in the next scheduled contest whenever the student is deemed truant as defined by school policy, unless administration grants permission to participate. Students may continue to practice at the discretion of school administration after consultation with the coach or advisor, meaning you need to be in class and not have unexcused absences. Number 5, behavior or conduct which reflects unfavorably on a student. The significance of the violation will be evaluated and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. Examples of this include, do you get an in or out of school suspension? If you have or receive one of those, there could be a suspension based on violating that section of our code of conduct. Cheating. Note we have a first and second offense policy that we apply in the event a student is caught cheating and or plagiarizing. Please note the best advice I can give is make sure you talk with your teacher so you understand what you are allowed to do in situations regarding group projects, speeches, and or other written assignments. And number 8, failure to be a student in good standing, meaning you adhere to your high school code of student conduct and you adhere to your high school attendance and tardy policies. Please note there's an additional consequence for varsity athletes when it comes to tournament series participation and having a code of conduct violation. On page 28, the minimum penalty for code of conduct violations or any behavioral offenses that result in a student athlete being suspended for any portion of WIA tournament competition is immediate disqualification of the student athlete for the remainder of the total tournament series in that sport. Athletes who are ineligible during the WA tournament may not appear in uniform, participate in warm-ups, and may not participate in the award ceremony at the WA tournament, with the exception being an injured athlete will be allowed to participate in the award ceremony provided he or she is included in the roster allotment for that game. On pages 29 and 30 is information about our appeals process. Please note when a possible code violation comes to the attention of administration, it will be acted upon in accordance with the guidelines specified in the OASD Co-Curricular Handbook. Number 2 talks about what happens when a ruling of ineligibility resulting in suspension has been made. And number 3 talks about what a student and or parent must do in regards to filing an appeal. Note, appeals may be filed only in reference to whether there was a code violation or not. An appeal may not be filed to change a consequence. And note number 4, the decision by any appeal committee will be final and binding. Hopefully, you use good judgment and keep yourselves out of a jam so that you never have to be in a position where you're found in violation of the Co-Curricular Handbook. Again, make good choices. And if you feel that you got yourself into a jam and had no idea that something bad was happening and tried to get out of there or did leave, please don't be afraid to come forward to school administration and inform us about what happened. We are reasonable people. We will listen and we will do a thorough job of investigating whether or not we feel a violation did in fact take place. Please note on pages 30 to 32 is information regarding the district's awards. We have varsity awards, which are based on achievement, and we have participation awards based on participation. Those are awarded at the freshman, sophomore, and possibly junior level. Please note when it comes to all conference guidelines on page 31, any OAST student athlete suspended from participation for an athletic contest due to a code violation in the areas of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, performance enhancing substances, vandalism, criminal offense, or violation of a city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart or other serious offense considered unbecoming of a student athlete will not be eligible for all conference recognition in any conference in the sport where their suspension is initiated. Okay. We also do award or do provide or allow students to provide or receive awards based on first-time offenses if they meet our self-referral policy, and that's outlined in the top of page 31. Okay. And there's also an option for students to possibly receive an award if they follow through on a community service plan. So just be familiar with that. On pages 32 and 33 is information about the district's communication policy. Basically, if you have questions or concerns about your son or daughter's involvement in either being selected on a team or not being selected, their role or playing time, most of our coaches want our student athletes to have that discussion first with the coach. And then if there are additional questions, the parent may want to follow up and reach out. Note administration will ask if you contact them about a question or concern, have you first and foremost had a conversation with the coach? And if that has not taken place, in most all cases, you will be directed to have that conversation at that level first. Again, working together is key and paramount, communicating with each other. We all have the same goal of having positive experiences. So if you have questions or concerns, please feel free to schedule a time to meet with our coaches. We all must work together to create an atmosphere of trust for all. Information on our sportsmanship expectations is found on pages 33 and 34. Please note the Fox Valley Association expectation of parents, guests, and other fans. Game attendance is a privilege, not a license to verbally assault others or to be obnoxious. Be respectful of game officials, players, coaches, opposing fans, and facilities. Be exemplary role model by positively supporting teams in every manner possible. Cheer positively for your team. Never cheer negatively for the opposing team. Respect the judgment and strategy of the coaches, players, and officials. And be a fan, not a fanatic. If a fan is ejected from a regular season or WA tournament series event, there is now a sportsmanship online class requirement the fan must complete in order to be reinstated, and they will be allowed to miss the next scheduled contest and or contest depending on when the ejection took place. On pages 34 and in the appendices that follow is important information for student athletes and parents. On page 34, you'll see information about our schedules at www.foxvalleyassociation.org. For our varsity sports, we carry conference stats, results, and other valuable information at www.feasports.net. So those are two websites I encourage you to be familiar with and maybe bookmark. The first appendix is an eligibility overview for athletes. It talks about you are not eligible if any of the following applies. So please be sure that you are aware of what's listed in that short eligibility document. It's there for your benefit. The next 4 pages is information from the WIAA regarding their eligibility bulletin. I should say 5 pages. This is extremely important information that all student athletes and parents are held accountable for. I encourage you to take time to read this information as it's a short cheat sheet, basically, or Cliff Notes term use of the important things you need to know about being a high school student athlete. I'm going to cover a few of them in a little bit more detail here. The first is in regards to age on page 1. A student shall be ineligible if they reach their 19th birthday before August 1st of any given school year. Regarding residence, we have a way of determining residence for public school students and for non-public school students. So in the case of being a public school student, a full-time student is eligible for varsity competition only at the school within whose attendance boundaries their parents reside within a given school district, and then there are with these additional provisions, which are listed as A through J. So please be aware of those. Okay. Regarding training and conduct, let me back up to transfers. On page 3, a full-time student may be afforded up to 8 consecutive semesters of eligibility based upon entry into grade 9. Transferring schools at any time may result in restrictions imposed on eligibility or in some cases denial of eligibility. For the purpose of this rule, attendance at one day of school and or attendance at one athletic practice shall determine beginning of the school year. And then these additional provisions apply. Letters A through L. So I'm going to mention just a couple of them. A student who transfers from any school into a member school will be subject to the transfer rules for one calendar year unless the transfer is made necessary by a total and complete change in residence by parents, meaning a necessitated change in residence. Students entering 9th or 10th grade at the beginning of the school year and are within the first 4 consecutive semesters of high school will be afforded unrestricted eligibility, provided all other rules governing student eligibility are met. That's letter B. Letter C, students entering 11th and 12th grade are restricted to non-varsity opportunities for one calendar year. Letter F, in the event of divorce or legal separation, whether pending or final, residents at the beginning of the school year shall determine eligibility for students entering 9th and or 10th grade. Letter G, district policies with respect to intra-district transfer do not supersede WA rules regarding transfers. Meaning in our district, we have 2 high schools, so whatever our intra-district rules are, they do not supersede the WI's district or WA's transfer rules. And note L, no eligibility for a student whose residence within a school district's boundaries or with or without parents or whose attendance at a school has been the result of undue influence, meaning special consideration due to athletic ability or potential on the part of any person, whether or not connected with a school, will not get eligibility. Okay, so again, questions on transfers. If you're a transfer student or thinking about transferring schools, please reach out to me as I'm more than happy to help. Again, now talking about training and conduct, the information is found on pages 3 and 4 of the eligibility bulletin. Basically, the code of conduct is in force 365 days, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So please be aware of A through I, which are the different areas regarding training and conduct that are mentioned regarding violations. I did talk about the tournament series issue before if a student is suspended for that. Also note F, a student athlete disqualified from a contest for flagrant or unsportsmanlike conduct is also suspended from the next competitive event at the same level of competition as the disqualification. Letter G, a player who, in the judgment of the official, intentionally spits on, strikes, slaps, kicks, pushes, or aggressively physically contacts an official at any time shall be immediately ineligible for competition, a minimum of 90 calendar days from the date of confrontation. In addition, the player is ineligible to compete for the first 25% of the next season in that same sport. So please be aware of that. All right, also on page 4 is information about amateur status. This is really, really important information. Make sure you read each of the different items, A through D, and any A through E, and any subpoints found under any of those letters. So, regarding amateur status, a student athlete may not accept, receive, or direct to another reimbursement in any form of salary, cash, including gift cards, or share of game or season proceeds for athletic accomplishments, such as being on a winning team, being selected for the varsity team, or being a place winner in an individual tournament. Letter B, a student may receive a medal, cup, trophy, or plaque from their sponsoring organization regardless of cost. School mementos valued not more than $200, an award not valued more than $100 retail for participation in an athletic contest in a WA recognized sport, and may retain non-school competition apparel worn by the student as part of the team uniform. C, a student may not capitalize on athletic fame by receiving money, compensation, endorsements, or gifts of monetary value in affiliation or connection with activities involving the student's school team, school, conference, or WIA, Scholarships to institutions of higher level learning are specifically exempted. Letter D, which is something new regarding name, image, and likeness. A student athlete is not restricted from participating in a name, image, and likeness, or the common term NIL commercial endorsement, provided there is no school team, school, conference, or WIAA affiliation. Prohibited NIL activities are defined as follows. 1. The student shall not appear in the uniform of the student's school and does not utilize the marks, logos, etc. of the school team, the school, conference, or WIAA as part of any endorsement. 2. The student shall not promote activities nor products associated with the following: gaming or gambling, alcoholic beverages, tobacco, cannabis, or related products, banned or illegal substances, adult entertainment products or services, weapons, i.e., firearms. 3. The compensation is not contingent on specific athletic performance or achievement, meaning financial incentives based on something as points scored, touchdowns scored, goals scored, etc. Number 4, the compensation is not provided by the school or persons associated with school as an inducement to attend a particular school, meaning recruiting, or to remain enrolled at a particular school. Number 5, the NL activities do not interfere with a student athlete's academic obligations, and the student does not miss athletic practice, competition, travel, or other team obligations in order to participate in NIL opportunities. Number 6, a student may or cannot utilize representation or contract an agent. High schools or its employees are not allowed to help facilitate deals for student athletes. So again, we are not allowed to help or facilitate. We are only allowed to educate. Any questions at all regarding NIL, feel free to reach out to see if we can help. There will also be some additional information that I'll cover in the next slide here very shortly. In the other amateur status area E, a student athlete may not participate in school athletics or sports activities outside the school under a name other than their own. Another area to be aware of is sports activities outside of the school. Note, WA rules do not prevent students from practicing with non-school teams or from receiving private instruction during the school season. However, they may not participate officially or unofficially, including banditing, in more than 2 non-school competitions or races, including scrimmages against other teams, as long as there has been school approval for those 2 or less. And under that area, note 1, 2, and 3. 1, the restriction applies to normal non-school gimmicks and games, such as reduced number competitions or specific skill contests or fun runs. Number 2, during the season, athletes may participate in a skills contest with approval of the school. Specific skill contests, which are noted, isolate separate skills outside of the traditional competition setting. They may not include physical contact or extreme fatigue as the actual sport competition. Note, fun runs are not considered skills contests. There can be no school or coach involvement. All other eligibility rules, including amateur status, apply. And 3, a student who is a member of a school team during the previous year may not delay reporting for the school team beyond the school's official opening day of practice in order to continue non-school training and/or competition. Letter C, a student athlete or their parents must pay 100% of the fee for specialized training or instruction, such as camps, clinics, and similar programs. Letter E, a student athlete must not participate in an all-star game or similar contest except for summertime activities that are A, within the same league or program, or B, in which a team is selected to represent a league in postseason play. So, again, more important information there. Again, you are responsible for all of the information in the WA Rules of Eligibility, including the abbreviated version of the High School Eligibility Bulletin. If you have questions about anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Some additional NIL information has been applied for you in the appendix. The first is what the WI proposed constitutional amendment that passed is versus what the NCAA policy is. Please note the differences between the two. This is a great informational sheet. Also be aware of the student athlete NIL compliancy in Wisconsin document. It lists what you can do under the yes column and what you cannot do under the no column. Please note, a violation of amateur status can be career ending, so it's a very serious thing. If you're ever unsure of anything, don't get involved in it without doing your research and or asking the AD or your coach for additional information. The next resource we have is the banned substance list from the WIAA. Please note that banned substances, possession and or use violates the WA Code of Conduct. And please note there's no complete list of banned substances. Any substance chemically related to these classes is also banned. The student athlete shall be held accountable for all drugs within the banned drug class, regardless of whether or not they have been identified. Okay? Discouraged substances, possession and or use may violate school district policy. So please be aware of that. Note, if a student athlete is required to take a banned substance because it's legally prescribed by a doctor, that does not constitute a violation. And in those situations, it's just important for you to let the school know that that's taking place so that we are aware. Again, please be aware of the banned information substance information. The next items are from the National Federation of High Schools. The first is in regards to a parent or guardian's guide to concussions. Again, concussions are extremely serious. It is a brain injury. Our philosophy is when in doubt, the law requires us to sit them out. So please see all of the important information in that appendix. Signs and symptoms of a possible concussion that may be seen by a parent, that may be reported by an athlete. Okay, all important information. Please be aware of it. It's there as a resource for you. The next appendix is in regards to hazing information. Please note the National Federation defines hazing as any humiliating or dangerous activity expected of a student to belong to a group, regardless of their willingness to participate. Note, violations or hazing examples and or bullying harassment type things are not only violations of school district policy, but also can be violations of the law and have legal consequences. If you feel you are being hazed at any point in time during your career, bullied or harassed, please reach out to your coach and or school administrator as soon as possible so that we can help deal with the information or situation. And the last appendix that we include for parents is a positive sport parenting self-assessment test. It's 10 simple questions, and the results page provides additional information depending on where you score. If you do take this test, we ask that you take it honestly to get an idea to see where you fall in the continuum. And note, there are additional resources from the NFHS to help you become a positive parent and role model with your son or daughter's participation in co-curriculars. If you are a student athlete that has goals, dreams, or desires of competing in collegiate athletics at the NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 level, you need to be aware of the NCAA Eligibility Center. It's important that you work with your guidance counselor as soon as possible to be familiar with the Eligibility Center, as there are a certain number of core course requirements from academic areas that a student athlete must have if they attend an NCAA Division 1 or 2 institution in order to be eligible as a full qualifier once they enroll in college. Again, the time to know about the Eligibility Center isn't the last semester of your senior year. It is now, as soon as you have aspirations and goals. Work with your guidance counselor to make sure you are taking courses that meet the NCAA core course approval and academic areas. Questions? Reach out to your guidance counselor. If you are a transfer student, as I mentioned before, please make sure you've contacted me via this email address or phone number, as we need to make sure we fill out paperwork to determine your eligibility. And regarding locker rooms, Oshkosh West supplies locks for all of the locks in the varsity locker rooms. It is the expectation that you use those locks, you will be assigned a locker, and that you lock up your valuables. The number one issue with thefts results from students who do not lock up their stuff, even if they're leaving the locker room for a few minutes. Okay? So lock up your stuff. And when your season's over, even if you are going to compete in a sport the next season, the expectation is that you clean out your locker so that it can be cleaned, as you may or may not be assigned the same locker the next sports season. Parents and students need to be aware of the Oshkosh West Booster Club. They're an outstanding group of individuals, mostly parents, that help generate funds for our student athletes and their athletic programs. They have monthly meetings in the O Room, typically on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. We have roles of what are called sport reps, where we're looking for people that are actively involved in the booster club that represent sending out information to all the other parents. If you have a desire to potentially be a booster club sport rep, contact your head coach. And note that the booster club runs a few fundraisers during the year where we actively seek parent volunteers. So when you are contacted by your coach, please help out either by donating time and or maybe helping find businesses that donate, or maybe your employer provides a monetary donation. Our single biggest fundraiser is concession sales. Each sport will be assigned a number of dates to work concessions during the course of the school year. It's expected that all parents take a turn at some point in time during the course of their high school student athlete's career working in the concession stand. It's fun. It's a great way to meet other people. And some of the other major fundraisers the Booster Club has is the summer golf outing, the summer Waterfest event worker, Battle on Bago, where we sell raffle tickets in the winter. So again, reach out to your head coach for more information regarding the Booster Club. That's going to wrap up this year's online co-curricular code meeting presentation. I wish you nothing but the best of luck during the 25-26 school year. Remember, have pride in yourself, have pride in your program, have pride in your school. Go Wildcats.